Imagine waking up one morning to find out that your home, your land, your entire future has been sold, not to a king, not to a rival empire, but to a private British company. A company that once treated human beings like livestock. A company that signed secret treaties in the dead of night. A company that would later become one of the world's most powerful financial institutions. This is how the colonization of Nigeria began. Not with a massive invasion, but with paperwork. The takeover of Nigeria wasn't a simple conquest. It was a meticulously planned business operation, built on manipulation, deception, and pure greed. This is the story of how the Royal Niger Company bought political authority over millions of people, and how Britain eventually forced together territories that never agreed to become one country. Before the first European ships dotted the horizon, this land was already home to powerful, sophisticated civilizations. In the north, the Sokoto Caliphate was a beacon of organization, education, and trade, with connections stretching across North Africa and the Middle East. To the west, the Oyo Empire commanded immense respect with its formidable army and vast political influence. And in the east, the kingdom of Ife flourished, celebrated for its breathtaking artistry, rich culture, and advanced systems of governance. Life here was structured. Trade was booming. Laws were established. Education was valued. This land wasn't waiting for a savior. It was a land overflowing with opportunity. And Britain wanted a piece of it. For over 300 years, European ships anchored along the West African coast. They weren't there to explore. They were there to capture. It has estimated that between 1.5 to 3 million people from the region we now call Nigeria were forcibly taken, chained, and shipped across the Atlantic as slaves. Entire families were shattered. Mighty kingdoms were weakened from within. Communities were destabilized for generations. And when the British finally abolished the slave trade, it wasn't because of a sudden moral awakening. They simply changed their business model. Instead of selling people, they started exploiting resources: palm oil, ivory, timber, and rubber. The goal was never morality. The goal was, and always had been, profit. Then, something unbelievable happened. The formal colonization of this vast territory didn't begin with the British government. It started with a single ambitious businessman, George Goldie. He founded a private company he called the Royal Niger Company. Goldie began traveling from one community to the next, not with an army, but with a stack of documents. He would approach local chiefs and say, "Sign this treaty. We will protect you. In return, you will trade only with us." Many chiefs, believing it was a simple trade agreement, signed. But hidden in the fine print were clauses that handed over complete control of their rivers, their trade routes, and even their political authority to Goldie's company. Within a few years, Goldie had collected over 450 of these treaties, and in 1884, at the infamous Berlin Conference, a meeting where European nations carved up Africa like a cake, Goldie presented his stack of signed documents. With that, the European powers declared, "Nigeria belongs to Britain." An entire nation transferred through ink on paper. No battle, no negotiation, no consent from the millions of people who live there. With the interior secured on paper, the next target was the strategic port of Lagos. In 1851, Britain demanded that the Oba of Laja, Oba Kasoko, put an end to the slave trade. He refused. In response, Britain didn't send diplomats. They sent gunboats. They attacked the kingdom, defeated Kosoko, and installed a new king, Oba Akitoy, who was more compliant with British demands. 10 years later, in 1861, Britain decided they wanted full control. A treaty was placed before the new king, Oba Dosunmu, while British cannons were aimed directly at his palace walls. The message was clear: sign or we burn it all down. He signed. Just like that, Lagos was gone. Britain then turned its attention to the powerful north. They approached the Sokoto Caliphate, initially feigning friendship. "We just want to trade and help stop slavery," they claimed. But the Caliphate saw through the deception and refused to cede its sovereignty. So Britain attacked. One by one, the great cities fell. Kano in 1903, Katsina in 1903, and finally the capital, Sokoto, in 1903. The Sultan, Atahiru, refused to surrender. He fled, rallying his forces for a final stand. He fought bravely to the very end, dying in battle as a symbol of resistance. With the North defeated, Britain faced a new problem. It was expensive to govern. Their solution was indirect rule, a clever system of controlling the people through their own traditional leaders, who were now puppets of the colonial administration. It was colonization on a budget without any real accountability. But the South presented a different challenge. The ancient kingdom of Benin had fiercely resisted signing any trade treaties with Europeans. Britain labeled Benin as hostile, creating the perfect excuse to invade. In 1897, a force of thousands of British soldiers stormed the city. The kingdom was burned to the ground. The Oba was exiled, and its priceless artworks, the world-famous Benin bronzes, were looted and shipped off to museums in Europe. To this day, many of those museums continue to profit from these stolen treasures. By 1913, Britain controlled both the northern and southern protectorates. But there was a glaring issue on their balance sheet. The North wasn't profitable. It couldn't generate enough revenue to sustain the costs of its own colonial administration. The Governor-General Frederick Lugard came up with a purely economic solution: merge the North and the South. This wasn't about unity. It wasn't for progress or cultural exchange. It was a cold, calculated business decision. The wealth generated in the South would be used to fund Britain's colonial operations in the North. Nigeria was never created for Nigerians. It was created for Britain's financial efficiency. The amalgamation became official on January 1st, 1914. There was no referendum. No vote, no consent was ever asked for. Nigeria was born, not as a nation, but as a business with borders drawn for convenience, a business with people treated as assets, a business designed from the ground up to be exploited. Nigeria was not taken by war alone. It was taken by strategy, through deceptive paperwork, through blatant betrayal, and through insatiable greed. History isn't just a series of events that happened. It's the result of what was planned, what was plotted, and what was profitable for the powerful. If you want to uncover more untold stories like this, stories that challenge everything you thought you knew about history, make sure to subscribe and follow our channel. Thank you for watching.